Well, howdy. Well, I talked about this one in one video recently, well, a while back, but it was in conjunction with his other developments. What you're looking at is a Frank Wesson. Technically, really technically speaking, it's a Wesson and Harrington, but the main patent for this is held by Frank Wesson, and that's the patent of 1859 for a breech-loading rifle. And this is a Type 2. And I can tell it's a Type 2 by the position of this gizmo right here and this gizmo right here. In the Type 1, this was on the right side, and the very early Type 1s did not have this. This is the extractor. Type 2 had them in this configuration. Well, the Frank Wesson Double-trigger was made in 44, 38, 32, and 22 rimfire. This is in 32 rimfire. It was very popular in the Civil War with state militias. The federal government never bought any of these, but many Midwest state militias from Indiana to Ohio to, well, through that area bought a lot of them. And let's see, the ones that were issued to the state militias were mostly in 44 rimfire. As I said, this one's in 32. And this is well, that's a full rifle. It has no markings on it at all, which denotes that this was not sold to a state militia, because all of the ones sold to the state militias were sold from a distributor in Cincinnati named Kittredge and Company. And Kittredge always had their names emblazoned on the side of this octagonal barrel. Frank Wesson never marked it. I mean, there is absolutely no markings, not even a serial number on this thing anywhere. The closest thing to a marking it has is the serrations on the hammer, but and there's none on the trigger either, and there's nothing in here. I've looked all over for any kind of serial number on this thing. Doesn't exist. Now, the way a Frank Wesson works is kind of interesting. To load it, you would put it on half cock, which is what it's on right now. Then pull this front trigger and, excuse me while I get it down here, and then pop it open like this. Load your cartridge and then shut it. Now, this gizmo here makes sure that the barrel does not come open too far. And the extractor, the original ones did not even have an extractor, and very quickly Frank Wesson developed this for it. But as I said, he put it on the other side. The Type 2 had it on this side. And the way it works is it's a manual extractor. You do that and the shell will come out at least enough that you can pick it out after that. It had that particular innovation, made it win hands down against its competition. Also, the fact that it used the rimfire made it in carbine form a very valuable commodity to all of the cavalry out there. Because the one thing a cavalry officer does not want, or even a trooper, is to stop and dismount so he can reload a muzzle-loading rifle, or even carbine. And also, he would have to carry ball, powder, and primers, caps. With this thing, there's just one cartridge he carries and throws in there, and he can fire at will. This obviously had a break at some point. This is a typical 19th century patch. You just take a piece of metal, drill some holes in it, and then run screws in it to hold it in place. And that was the patch that they put on it. It's the crack's right here. It's not a very secure patch. See, it's on both sides, but it works. And oh, by the way, after you load it, put it in full cock and then use the back trigger to fire it. I have fired this a few times, and it's pretty cool. I do have some 32 rimfire. I bought a box of 50 for $100, and then I saw another set of them at a gun show with a 32 rimfire revolver, and I had to buy the revolver to get the rounds for this. It'll shoot either 32 short or long, so it's non-denominational, but it is rimfire. I think the Type 4 of those, he had a adjustable hammer where it could hit either a rimfire or a centerfire. Alas, this does not have that adjustable hammer. So, oh well. But it's a cool old rifle, I think. And granted, because it shoots rimfire and is not a very usable rifle other than that, and since 32 rimfire has not been made since, I checked once, it was the last time it was made was in Argentina. It was in 1977. And they did a special run, and I think Dixie sold it for some guns that people really wanted rimfire for, but there hasn't been a run since then. And the stuff I have is Remington, and it's probably from, turn of the century, and it's in copper, not brass, copper shells, which is correct for this. That was what they were designed for. Incidentally, from casings found, a gun like this was used at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Also in one of the battles with, I think it was in Comanche War or battle in New Mexico. They found some rimfire shells, and they came out of a Frank Wesson. So this thing did get around a bit. The South never used these because they never had the technology for making rimfire. Though I think they bought about 10 of them via one of the runners who came through the blockade from Cuba. He had like 10 of them and a few thousand rounds and brought that in. But that's the only Frank Wesson that showed up in the South. It was 10 of them. So hardly made a dent in anything. But anyway, this is my Frank Wesson rifle. I sort of like it. As I said, Harrington, at one point, Wesson and Harrington was a company. And Harrington, by the way, he married Frank's sister. So that's the family connection on that. And later on, Harrington met was Richardson, so H&R, and that became quite the company for many years. And I think Frank died in 1898, 99, somewhere around there. He was the younger brother of Dan Wesson of Smith & Wesson fame. Both of them trained as gunsmiths under their older brother, who was much older than both of them. I forget his name, but I know they had a young son, brother named Rufus Jr. Their dad's name was Rufus, and his fourth son, he also named Rufus. Yeah, interesting family, and very, very innovative in terms of firearms. This was the high tech of the 19th century. The Connecticut Valley and Massachusetts were that century's Silicon Valley. Anyway, Frank Wesson rifle.